87% of realtors get into the business and get out of the business in 2 years. That doesn't exist in our world.
We have massive visions around growing our businesses, and we are always looking to add talent to our world. We do everything in our power to ensure the people we surround ourselves with defy the odds, get into production, and build massive lives for themselves.
If you are a realtor looking to get into the business, we have a blueprint for success.
With locations all across Canada, reach out to us. Let's talk about partnership and opportunities. We are looking forward to it. Welcome back, Sales Beast listeners. Today we're back with another special episode specifically for Earth Day, and I'm really excited to welcome on board my best friend, Kylie. Kylie, thank you so much for joining us. How are you today?
I'm doing wonderful. How about you?
We're doing great. It's another great day here. So today, Kylie, we really want to focus on sustainability, home ownership, and just how to treat our earth better, right? I think in real estate, there's a lot of ways that we do tend to be wasteful. And so I think you bring a good perspective coming from the construction side, as well as now in your current role. So before we dive right into it, why don't you tell us where you're at right now, a little bit about your background, and then we'll jump into some questions.
Awesome. Well, I'm happy to be here. Happy to have this conversation with you guys, because it is very important to bring sustainability into all different realms. It's not just for environmental world. So thanks for having me. And a little bit about me. So I'm in the consulting industry right now for environmental construction, but also for cities and companies, businesses. We kind of do it all. So that's where I'm at right now, but it's been a long journey to get here. I've had a lot of different backgrounds and different jobs. I've worked in heavy civil construction. I've in project management. I've been in a college working for policy and programming. And I've also worked with animals, domestic and exotic. So a little bit of everything, but always on sustainability and environmentalism.
Awesome. And so a couple of the topics we want to cover today are around some eco-friendly and cost-effective solutions for real estate specifically. So do you want to touch on a little bit of your perspective when it comes to making sure that we can build in a great way while also the sustainability aspect of things?
Yeah. So there are a lot of different angles you can kind of look at it for retrofit. So retrofit is huge right now in a lot of communities in Toronto. What we're doing is trying to look at older homes and make them more efficient. So there's that piece of it. When you are doing renovations, you can do a few things that are cost effective. The biggest one is sealing for air leak. A lot of heat and cooling just flies out the doors, the windows, cracks, roofs, everything. So that's like a easy way to just get some caulking and go for it and seal up that area. You can also do Energy Star appliances or toilets. Those are a cost-effective way to make your house more efficient. Before, it was very expensive, but now it's very cost efficient to install a new toilet with Energy Star seal. It's like a blue logo with a white star on it. So it's really noticeable. There are other ways, like lighting is a good one, LED lighting. So these are easy ways you can kind of invest into your home and then get a good payout in the end.
What about something, I've spent way too much money on it. I renovate homes in Hamilton, or I shouldn't take the credit, my wife does. And I'm always getting these bills for spray foam insulation, which is outrageously expensive, not something I used to do. Does that make your house more energy efficient? Is it better for the environment? And will it cut down on your monthly costs?
It will, yes. So I can't speak to the exact ingredients within the spray foam. I have a feeling it's not super eco-friendly, the materials that they use in it, but you do get the benefit of having that increased insulation. And I think I have some stats here that will make you want to do it. So I think it was so by increasing your insulation and your ceiling of your house, you could save on energy bills and reducing your greenhouse gases by 28%, which would equal to about $560 per year by making these changes. And it can just grow from there depending on how intense you want to be with your changes. So it's worth it. Long story short, yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of different products and a lot of different elements just by looking into it a little bit, what's available in your area. Toronto has a lot of great programs right now, as a Transform TO, which is their initiative for retrofits and making new buildings more energy efficient off the bat, because that's always the best way to go, is not having to change it up afterwards. Yeah, doing the retrofit. So to Transform TO, I would definitely check it out for anybody interested, and they have a lot of good resources.
I had a question for you. So we renovate 100+ year old homes in Ontario, and the first thing we do when we buy one of these places is go in and gut the whole house, put all this trash into a bin, and it gets taken somewhere. I have no idea where. My wife, she loves investing in real estate, loves renovations. She's also very environmentally conscious, a lot more so than myself, I would say. And that pains her so much, almost to the point where she doesn't want to do any more renovations because she feels as though she's harming the environment. Is there a clean way to go about demolishing a home and building it back up so it's more energy efficient?
So the first thing that comes to mind is seeing what you can save. Some of the older homes that are 100-year-old, it's not in great shape. So that's the first thing, is that making sure whatever you can salvage is placed into kind of reusable industries. So there's like Habitat for Humanity. There's people on Facebook Marketplace that redo a lot of old furniture or even doors, beams. Like there are people that will want to use this material, especially for historic homes. So that would be the first thing, is see what you can save. Not everything is going to be salvageable, but there are places that you can bring this waste that will then properly dispose of it, so that they will sort through the nails and the wood and make sure that metals go with metal and wood go with wood. So it's not all just going to the landfill. So there are things that you can do. It's still in a process of making construction more energy efficient and eco-friendly and everything, but that's like a first step.
In terms of I know we kind of went back and forth over text trying to figure out what we can talk about for today, but when we're looking at Ontario and Canada as a whole, what kind of sustainability plans or goals are you aware of that are happening both currently and in the future that we should be aware of, especially from the real estate perspective?
So Canada has put out some ambitious goals for 2030 and 2050 to be more carbon neutral, which means that they're not producing greenhouse gases and within the transport industry and the construction industry and just in general. So whether or not we're actually going to meet that is a little bit up for debate, but they do have these goals in place, and the federal websites will have the full detailed plans of it, but that's the biggest part. And so transportation and construction, they are a large contributing factor to greenhouse gases. And so they're really trying to focus in on it. And I think it's like 57% of Toronto's greenhouse gases comes from homes. So that's why they're also really pushing for these retrofit initiatives to come out and for grants and funding to be available for people, because it's not always doable depending on your economic situation to do it within your house, but there are some initiatives for sure. So
and you see, so whenever someone renovates a house, if they're doing it by the book, they should go to the city and pull permits for their construction. Yes. Are these initiatives related to greenhouse gases and environmentally conscious construction, they being acted upon by the cities? I feel like that's the only way in which a lot of renovators will ever make a change, is if the city tells them that they have to. And it's not something I've ever had my city tell me I have to do.
It's not something that is enforced or hard, yes, that you have to do it. They are nudging you to be like, yes, do it. Here's some ways you can. But no, like right now, there isn't that. That is something that they're looking towards in the future, especially with new builds. That's something that they're really looking into. There may even be a few permits right now for the new buildings that are coming out, but for retrofits and older homes, no, not so much. I think I just lost my point, but that might come back to me. There's something else that, they're not doing anything right now, but it will come.
I think that's the only way to truly enact change in the system.
Yeah.
is to have it mandated by the cities in which we operate.
It's hard because a lot of people will push back. I mean, what we've seen other like taxes, let's say, that to be more sustainable, and there has been a lot of pushback. I think we will see some shifts with this new election to see what happens, whether who comes into government, and we will be either more or less depending on what happens. But you are right, like everything does stem from enforcement, and so hopefully they will be able to enforce that a little bit better or make it more efficient and cost effective for people to make these choices, because there are a lot of ways you can increase your investment by making these small changes. I think it's like 6% you can increase your value by making certain changes. And so that's also educating people on why it's important to do it and that it is beneficial for you too. So I think it's a mix of pushing from the government, but also increasing the education on it.
And probably even like high level talking about like grants and different subsidies. Like if we are getting a push from municipalities, cities, government, there needs to be some sort of incentive for people to also want to do it both in the short term and in the long term.
Definitely. And I think that comes back to the types of government we have. There was rebates for electric cars and retrofits and push for transportation. And then some of that was wiped away, but I won't get into that.
Did you have a question, Mike?
I do have a question. Yeah, it's it gets away from renovation. That's somewhat tie into home ownership. As homeowners, what would you say is the number one thing we can do to give back to the environment and take care of this planet we live on? Is it recycling? I know me and Anna talked about eating less meat. I've heard that is very good for the environment. If we could enact one change in our lives, what change would have the greatest impact?
So I think that sustainability, environmentalism is very different for every single person. So one change for one person might have a bigger effect in one area than it might for somebody else. So the biggest thing I'd say is start being aware of your actions. So I call it an audit. It's like a life audit. You can do it with your waste. So if you reduce the amount of garbage that you have and put it different streams like composting and recycling, that could be a big one depending on how much waste you are producing. There is also, if you always leave your lights on in your house and every single thing plugged in, your carbon footprint could be way bigger than somebody else's. So maybe that might make a bigger impact for you and your family, whether it be public transportation, eating less meat. There are lots of different ways. So it's hard to say like one fit all in this situation, but doing like an audit of your life and seeing what areas you could potentially reduce is a big one. Consumption in general, I think everybody could probably cut down a little bit and reuse items that are already produced, because production of products and even furniture and everything does play a big toll on the environment. So before you buy something new, if there's a way you can either rent it if you don't need to purchase it, or get it off Facebook Marketplace or a secondhand store or a friend, that's a big one too, that no matter where you're kind of at, you can be able to reduce your impact. And also just be more, I guess, aware of sustainability, environmentalism in general. It is so diverse and complex nowadays. I mean, it always has, but especially how the importance of it, of looking at from like an economical standpoint, environmental, social. So developing your relationship with sustainability is also something you can do.
So basically reduce, reuse, recycle is essentially this.
I was like,
done all my points.
I'm like the long-winded, like open-ended, like you do you. And then Anna's like, yeah, reduce. Yes, reduce.
No, I like that. And even just like coming, like, I don't know if you have this problem, Mike, but like coming from like a woman's standpoint, like I love shopping and I love going out and buying clothes. However, definitely not the best thing for the environment if I'm going and spending like $200 at Winners every couple of weeks, right? So you mentioned like you going to secondhand stores, like we love thrifting. That's definitely something to do. And especially as we're like looking into like bigger homes, especially in our age group, like finding furniture on Facebook Marketplace or building furniture, like I know your boyfriend has done, like those are amazing ways to not have to, waste or consume even more.
Yeah.
Find in life things that are bad are just, they're often so easy. Like if you're bored at night, go have some wine, quick fix. It's going to make you feel like garbage in the morning, but it will solve your problem in the short term.
Yeah, funny with
Something
that
that-
point. Sorry, don't mean to cut you off. Just in general with life, I read this quote where it's like, if it feels good or is it you feel good in the moment, it's usually not the best for you. But if you feel good after the fact, then you know it's like better for you, like kind of like working out. You hate doing it in the moment, but then you feel great afterwards. Same thing with wine.
And it's like, if you look at clothing, for instance, what are you wearing right now, Anna? Where's it from? This jacket, I think, is from RW & Co. It's going to be in the garbage in 6 months, guaranteed.
Fast fashion is
Go
like,
buy another.
Yeah.
And it feeds into my desire for cheap things because I'm naturally a cheap person. And there's so much of that fast fashion. You come to my house, my couch is from Structube. That thing's probably not going to exist in a couple of years. But it seems like those things that are bad for the environment are often very cheap and very easy to get your hands on.
Exactly.
So how do we reshift our thinking and move ourselves away from that? I don't have the answer to that one.
Yeah, it's very complex because it's also a social structure, our systems right now, of what we're producing and what we're focusing on. But we have seen a push from people to demand better quality things. So that things aren't made with child labor, that they're not made to only last a year, if not less. So we are seeing a push for that. And then hopefully companies will catch on, but it's also the affordability of it. I mean, sustainability is my life, but I still have things that aren't maybe great for the environment because it's in my price point. So it's like, how can you expect people to spend $5,000 on a couch that's going to last them a long time when they may have a family to feed, or, they're working paycheck to paycheck? Like there's a lot of all very complex things that are happening. So that's why we need the organizations and social structures in government to reevaluate what's important. And then also for the demand of people to push forward for better made things. I know the products that my grandma has had still are in great shape. They can be used today. Like a lot of her stuff in the kitchen is from when she was a kid. So like, things are just not made like that anymore because a lot of things that I could go into, but
well, it's like mass production too. Like you think of something that somebody made by hand that probably took hours and hours to make versus something that took seconds to make because it was mass produced in a factory. Well,
exactly.
Likely
Yeah.
the quality is going to be much better from the handmade item or whatever have you.
Yeah. And people too, like they want new things, like everything's so quick to change. Style changes within season, like everything's very fast in this world right now. So that's also part of it, just kind of slow down and like reevaluate a little bit. And COVID was nice for, I don't want to say that, but what us being at home was good to reevaluate some of our choices.
No, I get what you're coming from. Like even just like seeing the fact that like you don't need to really drive to work anymore. Like people can work from home or wherever they desire. Like I know you worked from home for most of the pandemic. How did that kind of affect your consumption or even like your own personable sustainability effort?
I did not spend like anything really, which was nice. Like I didn't need to buy any new clothes. I didn't need to lunches out with people. Like, so there was benefits to it, but I'm back in the office now and it's nice to have a balance. Like I think a lot of things with sustainability is all about balance. We don't have to limit ourselves completely so that we don't have some comfort, but also it's like we have to do sacrifice a little bit because as a society we've kind of pushed too far, so we got to balance it back a little bit. So hopefully that answers your question.
No, it does. Now, as we're kind of thinking towards the future and like thinking of different energy options, obviously we know that like there's some really great things that we can implement both for our homes, for our personal lives. Like what kind of energy opportunities are you seeing out there, both for like homes, let's say like cars, different opportunities that you think we should like really be in tune with, and like you said before, like just be aware of in general?
For homes, getting energy efficient heating and cooling systems, I think is a big one. They are expensive, or not. They can be expensive, but they will make your home way more efficient. And it's not consuming so much energy to run the systems, but it also it's much more effective when you are trying to heat and cool your home. So things like that for powering your home is changing, and there's a vast variety of things you can do for that. I guess like electricity in general, we are pushing away from nuclear and focusing on like more hydro, but depend where you are within Canada, it does change quite a bit. I know with us, we do have a lot of hydropower because we are by the lakes, but in other parts of Ontario, or even other parts of Canada, it's not the same way. So pushing for more sustainable and energy efficient solutions. And then also with cars, we are seeing obviously more electric. Fascinates me is the planes and transport trucks and what they're going to do about that. I know they're looking into hydrocarbon, which is a little bit different than electric. It's a mix between like hydrocarbon and diesel. That kind of going to be the future, which will be interesting because those like transport trucks are huge production for greenhouse gases globally. So
I find you don't like there's a lot of buzz around certain companies when it comes to sustainability. It seems like that's especially true in the automotive industry, Tesla and NIO and all these other electric cars that are coming out, but you don't hear really anything about that in the housing space. And I don't know why. Like, do you see the same kind of push with housing as we're seeing with the automotive industry as we move into the future?
I think with housing, it is a bit more complicated, just especially in cities. I know solar panels, people are installing them on their roofs a lot more. It is a bit easier in rural areas, wind power turbines, again, rural areas. So with homes and the way our system is kind of set up right now, it doesn't leave much room that I'm aware of. I'm sure there's lots of stuff going on behind the scenes to make it different. It's also with solar panels right now is from, again, what my understanding is when you harness solar energy, you have to sell it back to the grid and then buy it back. So it's different than the States where you can just power your home on your own solar energy. So again, it goes back to our government and what we're able to do within the system we have. So we can build those infrastructures, but we also need the systems to support it and just a general shift towards making more efficient energy strategies and infrastructures to support that.
Yeah, I had an interesting conversation. I used to work in the automotive industry and I spoke to this guy was a boss of mine and he was talking about the particular company I was working for and how they're somewhat behind where they would like to be. And I think it was relatively soon, by 2030, the company's mandate is that all their cars will be either hybrid or electric. And it's a major automotive manufacturer. And to me, that's just mind-blowing. And it's kind of shocking how little seems to be happening within the housing space. I'm sure there are options to be more green or any energy efficient. I guess my question, or the question I ask myself, is why is it not a requirement? The city, when I meet with planners and city bylaw, they're more than happy to give me direction and requirement about 1,000 different aspects of my renovation project. They never talk to me about being more energy efficient. It just seems so interesting. It seems like housing is the Wild West.
Yeah, it's unfortunate because there is a lot of ways to make your house efficient where you don't have to put solar panels on. Like I said, just sealing your house a bit better, just depending on your like appliances, heating and cooling, even your roof. A lot of like insulation can be for your roof. Like there are lots of different ways, but not a lot of people within the industry know or are able to talk about it or bring it up in conversations, or maybe they're a bit afraid it'll be pushed to a different company because they're not able to meet that demand. So there is a lot going on. I agree, like there should be a push. There's a lot of little changes that can be made that won't be a big deal, I would say, for people. Like there's like a lot of easy ways to do it. I want to see that to be a mandatory thing later on, if not as soon as possible. But what people can do, if you are interested, you do write to your government and say, hey, what is this about? Like with what we have going on right now, most of the time they're concerned about cost, unfortunately, but there is a lot of research that shows that you will get your money back by doing some of these efforts anyway. So I agree.
100%. And I think obviously with housing, one thing I just want to add is like, we know we're in a shortage of housing that's available in not only Ontario, but in Canada. So obviously it's hard to address a lot of the problems with sustainability in housing when we already have a housing crisis with not enough housing. So when I look at cities like LA and other like really big cities in the US, a lot of what they've done is move from solely like freehold single family to making most of their buildings, especially existing and new, into multi-residential. Do you think there's like a big difference in the sustainability efforts from having single family homes or multifamily homes, and what that might mean for investors listening to the call?
I think the biggest switch is that people are taking up less space when you are having multifamily residents or homes that are like more condos or mid-rises or things like that. So then you're consuming less energy, less space, resources to an extent. I mean, there are people who are in a condo blasting their AC in the middle of winter. So you can't generalize it, but for the most part. So that's why we see a lot of places in Europe too, with how they're dealing with it. A lot of places in Europe don't even have AC and heating. There are ways that we can become, I guess, efficient with our planning. I think city planning right now is a huge topic of how we are going to develop the future of largely populated areas. I know it right now in Toronto, they are looking at building a large condo that has more green spaces and green roofs, because a whole part of also sustainable construction is about mimicking the natural environment. So now that we're building this massive thing, we want to be able to still foster a healthy kind of environment within it. So we want like drainage to still be a thing. We don't want to take away environment from animals. So like there's a lot of aspects, but I think the way that they plan going forward is going to be a big factor, which will affect investors and what they're able to purchase.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good point. I mean, I guess the future will tell. I'm hoping that you'll keep us updated on what's new and exciting in terms of like sustainability and being environmentally friendly, because it's something that is not talked about enough, I think, in real estate. And maybe it's up to us, Mike, to bring this forward even more.
I think so. It's the first time we've ever spoken about it. And it's definitely got me thinking. That's for sure.
Yeah. And I could even give you an edge. I know a lot of people are looking into how they can spend their money and to something they believe in. So do it for sustainability reasons, but there are other reasons you can be more sustainable if you don't want to reduce your greenhouse gases. But a lot of people will want to buy these homes that have those initiatives in it. It will reduce their costs in the long run. They also feel like that emotional aspect that they're doing something good, which they are, is involved too. So there's a lot of different areas you can kind of attack this at. So, but yes, continue the conversation. I'll give you shorter answers before it's just a long topic.
No, this is good. And we'll get some resources from you that we can post on our website in terms of like where to find like grants, where to find more information, and how to contact local government, because some people don't even know how to do that. But
I will say Twitter is a great resource for a lot of grants. A lot of people post on Twitter about what's available for funding through like government websites as well, and a lot of people in that space. So yeah, I'll definitely give you some resources.
Cool. That's definitely important to note. Is there like specific accounts to follow, or mainly stay tuned?
Yeah, stay tuned. I'll give you some stuff.
Okay, sounds good. I appreciate that. Well, Kylie, I really appreciate your time again. Like, this is a topic that I think is super important both now and in the future. Before we let you go, and Mike, if you have any other questions, feel free to jump in. But we ask all of our guests the same question. Who do you know that we should have on the podcast?
Ooh, that's a good one. My old previous boss, his name's Devin Fernandez. Maybe I'll just say Devin, old boss. He has a very interesting perspective with sustainability. That's a very like social and behavioral change for sustainability. So if people and investors are looking how to incorporate it more into their kind of area, he has some good ideas of how to enact change and get people on board with things. So he's a good one.
Cool. We'll definitely have to reach out. Any last thoughts or comments that you want to leave us with today?
Thanks for having this conversation. I think the main step is just to be aware of what's going on. I know there is a lot going on, so it's easy to feel overwhelmed. And hopefully some of the things that you've learned today will inspire you and spark interest to learn more. We really just kind of touched the surface of things. So hopefully there is more to come.
And you got to plug your podcast before you go. So where can we listen to your podcast, Kylie?
So I have my own podcast with my co-host Jen. It's called Wellology Pod, and it is about sustainability, mental health, well-being, cultural development, and community. So lots of different topics, and you can listen to that on Spotify. We have 2 episodes out now, and you can check it out.